say welcome Jessica Guerrero, Go-to-Market Cloud, Diversity, Inclusion, and Culture. So please come to the stage. Thank you. Please give it up for our wonderful, wonderful hosts and founders today. Please, another round of applause. So, as Chantel mentioned, my name is Jessica Guerrero. I'm the Global Head of DEI and Culture for Google Cloud Go-to-Market. I actually sit in our Global StratOps organization leading these efforts right in the field with our sales executive leaders, as well as folks, account managers, and so on within our go-to-market organization. I'm so excited to be here with you all today. And I spent some time when I was asked to do this, to think a little bit about, understanding the audience that you all are in, where you are in your moment of time, like what is the message that will most resonate with you all. And the thing that came most to mind to me was, you all didn't come this far just to only come this far, okay? And you might be like, okay, you're listening too much to Drake, and that's fine. I do, I'm a fan, I must say. But when I think about really what does that mean, we didn't come this far to come this far. That really resonates in a few ways. Number one, at a macro scale, as I said, I sit in cloud. And in cloud, within Google, we are, at the forefront of driving, Google's AI, transformation. And so we're thinking about the future of tech. We're thinking about the future of work. We're thinking about the future of humanity. Okay, we're at such a pivotal moment in time where we are ushering in a new era of existence. We are at the table, at least as it relates to just being here on the planet, right? And for many of us, that might make us scared. We might be like, okay, what does this mean? When I think about myself, when I think about you all and where you are on your journey, you've invested 10, 20 years, probably in many cases more, developing yourself, developing a skill set, developing an expertise that actually might not exist in 5 years, right? When we think about how we're offloading lots of things that we do to AI, how it's moving faster and quicker and changing the way that we make decisions, how we live our lives, and so on. And we see that reverberate within the market. And for us, that's concerning, right? And when I think about where we are on a micro scale, and I'm thinking about just independently who we are, we may be in a space where, as women of color, we're not only just seeing a glass ceiling, we're actually in a steel box. And there's nowhere for us to go. We're over-mentored, under-sponsored, the skill set, as I mentioned before, that we are developing in, right, might not be of use. What are we to do? So just a quick pivot, a few weeks ago, I was speaking with my sister, just kind of sharing these concerns, and I'm always thinking big picture about a lot of stuff. And I'm like, life is cutting up. My kids are cutting up. I have 4 kids, ages 2, 4, 7, and 10. I'm doing way too much. I'm doing too much. We're all doing too much, okay? Then I'm like, work is cutting up, and I'm like, well, what am I doing? And I'm just going on and on and on, and she's sharing all these thoughts about how, hey, have you thought about getting some help? Have you thought about, delegating and offloading some of these responsibilities to other people? And I'm like, Gina, listen, I hear you, but I'm not doing that, and I need to figure out a way to manage it all. And every idea she had, I'm coming back why it's not working or why I just need to figure it out. We get off the call, a few minutes later, she sends me a post on Instagram that says, "Dear Black woman, struggling is not your birthright." And although I was like, okay, sis, you trying to play me, but at the same time, I was like, you know what, she's right. And I sat with that as it relates to all these different things that are happening. So at a macro level, right, it's usually people who look like us that get left behind when we think about ushering in these new eras of how we operate as humans. When we think about in the workplace, as I mentioned before, it's usually us not being tapped for those executive leadership levels. So what can we do about it? Truly, what can we do about it? What can we do to not struggle, to not just survive but thrive, and all the things that you're aware of that kind of resonate with the moment that we're in? So as many of you are in sales, you know the saying, you can't expect what you don't inspect, right? So when I think about that as it relates to you all, how can we inspect this moment of time? How can we inspect ourselves? How can we inspect the spaces we occupy? And there are a couple of things that come to mind. First and foremost, yes, as women of color, we need to know our worth. But I'm gonna one-up you in this moment, and do you know your value add? Okay? And we have to start thinking beyond our identity, and I know that's a lot because at the end of the day, our identities in many ways are barriers to our success. But we have to find a way to rise above that and think about our value add. And what I mean by that, I mean, when you think about what you offer to people above you, beside you, below you, can you honestly say with your skill set or your talent, you're in the top 5 to 10% of people who do what you do? Like, keeping it real with y'all. These are some unpopular opinions and some difficult truths. And if you can't honestly say that that's the case, my second point is, how can you invest in this moment of time into developing your own skill set? Now, I started with this notion of AI. We know it's changing. We know it's here. And we see that in different parts of the world. We see even at Google. We've had so many challenges this year with just kind of introducing technology and how we work. And what does this look like to what we offer the world from an AI perspective, right? What do you know about AI? And I'm not saying everybody needs to go and become a coder or a software engineer. I'm talking about how can you leverage this new technology to expand your skill set? How can you leverage this new technology from a subject matter expertise? How can you pitch this to the people around you to be more efficient and lead the charge in doing so? Invest in your expertise and build new tools for your toolkit. The second piece I want to share is take a risk. And this goes to this notion of don't stay where you're tolerated, go where you're celebrated. And a lot of times, especially of women of color, and I'm looking at Desiree because we have a long history, we met at Wharton, I used to lead DEI at the Wharton School, and I would tell folks all the time, everybody will want to recruit for, the top 3 consulting firms. Everybody wants to be at Goldman, everybody wants to be at Google, which is wonderful, and I'm happy that many of us are here at Google and that Google is putting this on. But sometimes you have to divorce yourself from those reputations to go to a place where you're going to be nurtured. And these places weren't built for us, and it doesn't mean that we can't be there, right? But we have to know what we're there for. And when we're in these spaces, we have to be more of a disruptor. We have to take more risk versus thinking these places are going to invest in us. And they're doing the best they can, and at the end of the day, that's my job, right? To make sure people like us are invested in us. So I'm doing the best I can, right? I'm looking at Ariel and other people who are committed to this work. But at the end of the day, you have to go to a place where you are being nurtured, okay? And that is a real unpopular opinion. That's a hard truth. And sometimes that might be a smaller company, but you might get a lot more love there. You might grow a skill set. You might develop your toolkit and so on, right? So you got to think about taking a risk. And then my last piece is allow yourself to be seen. And this is something through the entire trajectory of my professional career, I have seen us not do really well over and over again. We are waiting for someone to say, hey, you need to go and develop that skill set around generative AI. You need to go figure out what this new technology is, right? And so we're looking for permission to do a thing. We're looking for permission to be put in a position of power. We're looking for a position to say, hey, I'm going to tap you for this thing, instead of going out and getting it. And what I mean by that is allowing yourself to be seen is simply saying like, hey, I know you haven't mentioned this, but I have a really good idea. An innovative idea. I have a creative idea for us to do things more efficiently or better, or to increase our market share and so on. And I didn't need your permission. I went out and did it, and here goes the results. Okay? Hey, I know we're not thinking about AI, but we should. And that goes back to like, are you being nurtured? Because when you go to these good ideas, and if no one takes them, then you have to contend that this is the place that is going to really encourage you. But are you allowing yourself to be seen? Can people see not only your authentic self and not pouring into yourself or who you think you need to be, but who you actually are? And how are you stepping up to the plate to say, hey, I want to be next in line? Okay, so as you moved through today's summit and just through just the rest of the couple of days with the Sisters in Sales experience, I know the theme is we are here. And yes, in many ways, you all have arrived. And you deserve a round of applause for that, because it wasn't easy to get here, okay? But also what I want you to understand and be thinking about is also, where are you going? And you need to think and answer that question with the same urgency and the rate of change in which technology is moving the planet. So I'm going to ask you before you go to turn to the person next to you okay? And under the auspices of being seen, I want you to say, I see you, sis. I see you, sis. All right, y'all gotta do better than that. One more time, I see you, sis. I see you, sis. Okay. And I want you to say, I know you didn't come this far to only make it this far. I know you didn't come this far to only make it this far. And the last thing I want you to say is, last thing I want you to say is, we will go farther and faster, but only together. We will go farther and faster, but only together. Wonderful. Thank you very much. And now I would love to invite Britton and Jennifer, sorry, and we just talked about this, how we call each other's names. Britton and Jennifer to the stage. Thank you.
Hi everyone.
Hi.
How are y'all feeling after that talk?
Yeah, that was, thank you.
Jessica.
Thank you. No,
Almost my namesake. Wow, that really got us energized. I feel like she heard what we were going to talk about because she set it up beautifully and we did not chat about this. So yeah, it really is on time. My name is Jennifer Meacham. I'm a sales product lead at Google. I'm joined by Britton King, who is a head of industry. She's going to tell you what that means, because I know that across all of our different industries, that can mean different things, but it's essentially a sales team lead at Google. We're both within the retail space. We're super excited to be here with you today. Today, very similar to what Jessica led us through, talking about value add, we're going to translate that to power, right? We're going to talk about power, how to harness your power, how to use it, how to grow it. And I couldn't think of anyone better to chat through this than Britton with you. You all, I have a terrible memory, so forgive me throughout this weekend if ever you need to say, we met XYZ, I have a terrible memory. But what I can say is, honestly, truly, I remember meeting this woman. And I remember our early conversations coming back to work and all of us getting reacquainted with that process because she stood out. She stood out like a sore thumb, honestly, because she is incredibly authentic in the best way. She is bold and she's inspiring. And that is what I needed at that time. I think that is all what we've needed this year. It's been a very challenging year in the tech industry specifically. And so meeting Britton was very refreshing. So we're gonna dive into it. I'm gonna try to bring to life the beauty and the grace that this woman is. But we're gonna kick things off. We're talking about power a little bit. And I know that I kind of get my power from rooms like this. I'm a relator. That's my Clifton Strength Finder, topic. I don't know if we have other relators in the room, but I thrive in intimate, like carefully curated environments like this. So my heart is super full already. Britton, where do you feel most powerful? How do you feel most powerful?
I know we talked about this, but now I'm feeling differently based on the energy in this room. But I feel really powerful. I also feel powerful in rooms like this because of how it's a very humbling moment to really think through what it took to get here and to be here and I've sat in audiences for years wanting to be somebody who could be a leader in a visible way and lead other people into like their full unlimited potential. And I knew that I had that ability, but the path to get there wasn't always clear and the people on the stage didn't always look like somebody that I could be. And so that makes me feel really powerful that I was able to achieve that. Being a mother makes me feel powerful. I don't have 4 kids. I have 2 and I have a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old. But that makes me feel really powerful. The ability to grow and shape 2 little humans and also having a family is a dream realized for me too. So it's really the power of knowing that the faith I have and the belief I have in myself and being able to actually achieve and realize things makes me feel really confident.
I see that, yeah. I think we're all getting energy here. So, Brayden, we want to get to know you a little bit more and hear more about that journey because you just mentioned, this is something that you always wanted to do, and here we are, right? So, I know that you started your career in Indianapolis.
Yeah.
And I'm from Gary, Indiana. So
We're both from Indiana.
Hey, Indiana, we rarely get to say that, especially in New York.
I know, Indiana.
Oh my gosh.
Where are you from? Okay.
Wow.
Alright.
This never happened, so I'm going to take that
I know,
opportunity to
yeah.
shout out to Indiana.
Although we are very much giving New York.
We are
Very much giving New York.
New York. But I know you started out your career in Indianapolis, and very similar to I'm sure many of us, we didn't necessarily feel, that we could be as audacious and take as many risks as maybe we feel that we're able to now and in our careers.
Yeah.
So I want you to kind of set the stage for me. What was your mindset when you first started your career in Indianapolis? And then contrast it to how you show up now in your leadership position at Google.
Yeah. Well, first, let me give you a little bit of background. I've been in sales for 20 years, over 20 years now. Video. I can sell water to a well. That's a Jay-Z quote. Actually, my husband is a rapper, and I had him remake public service announcement for my team, bar for bar. I will play it for you if you want to hear it.
What did you say? I said you didn't tell me that one.
I'm serious. It was my team was shook. Anyway, so yes, I am a unique leader. But I have been in sales for 20 years. I've been at Google for 8. Michelle Vincent hired me at Google. How about that? Michelle, can I put you on the spot? How many other Black boys, head of industry? She was in the job I'm in now. How many other Black heads of industry were at Google when you hired me?
At that time?
Yep. Was it you and Vicky?
Still
Vicky.
You and Vicky. 2.
Yeah, she was my roommate at all the conferences. It was the 2 of us, and then we didn't have to worry about our hair. Two. And now I'm here because Michelle gave me a chance because I don't have a traditional background for Google at all. Or I didn't at 8 years ago. I think that was when they just changed the rules where you didn't have to come from a certain list of companies, a certain list of, and so, thank you. Thank you. You crushed it.
Thank you. But something she said to me when I interviewed leads me back to the question you asked me. I promise I'm getting back there. Because I was like, I'm not gonna get a job at Google. There's no way. And they're just gonna let me make coffee there. And I did the interview and everything, and Michelle hired me, and I was like, listen, I thought you were gonna look at my background and be like, no way. And she said, what I see is somebody who can land on her feet in any situation, adapt quickly, learn quickly, and be successful. And I was like, you're right, thank you. But that is true, So I started my career in Indianapolis, did not set out to be a salesperson. I had an English degree. I have a very different background than a lot of, I'll specifically speak to Google, where there's a lot of really highly educated, very high profile schools, companies, and that's dope. That was not your girl. I've been working since I was 13, and I think maybe it was legal, maybe not. Put myself through school, I was emancipated. And I'm from northern Indiana, and small town in the 80s growing up. So I was very street smart in terms of making it, but not super. I was very naive and I wasn't super educated in a broader way just because I didn't have access to it and I wasn't around people. But I really needed to make money and I really needed to make it. And I put myself through school and I picked a major that I was interested in and then I didn't know what the heck I was going to do and I ended up in sales. I did not know I was going to do this for a long time. I didn't take a single business class in college, but I was in tech sales in the early 2000s and nobody had any experience. And actually being able to understand, read and write and communicate and learn quickly was the only requirement. So I ended up at monster.com eventually, which was, I don't know if anybody in here is my age, it used to be a very big deal. It was a very, very big deal. And I was like, yes, you couldn't tell me anything. I was in my early 20s, I was making 6 figures and I was like, I love sales. People were like, I thought you went to law school. I was like, I'm just law school, no thanks, I'm making money, I'm good. And it was an incredible experience and I started to see myself differently. Maybe I could achieve more than I thought that I could. But I was running into trouble. I was running into
oh, these two dudes that their numbers aren't as good as mine just got promoted more quickly, and I got. They said it was because I was using it was telesales, by the way, because I was often when I was younger. Oh, you just pretty. You're just being a girl. You're just pulling that card. Excuse me. What? So I was in telesales. I couldn't see my face. Oh, you're using a sexy voice.
Wow.
You got a better territory. Like I was constantly just undermined, and like all my success was explained away. And I chose to sort of blend into the background and allow that to happen to me instead of trying to stand out. And it's very difficult for me not to stand out because I have that kind of a personality. I'm an Aquarius. I'm weird. I have a weird background. And so I tried not to rock the boat a lot, which is not my nature. And I just sort of like just thought the more if I blended in and tried to be like everybody else, then the more they would just see my results and not pay attention to me. And that would be a path to success.
So can I stop you there for a second? Who else can relate to that? Right? That resonated with me, right? You started and you kind of slowly grow your confidence for when to speak up and when to flex, right? So I think that is super relatable. Walk me through how you show up now. Progression.
Oh man. Well, okay. One thing that when I'm mentoring or like coaching, I say is like we try to act like, especially in our community, this is my work self and this is my personal self, and we are two different people when we are not two different people. We have two eyes, 2 ears, one heart, your skin, your body, and you live one life. And we try to compartmentalize and we try to say, this is me here, and that does not work, and it's also not real, it's not true. And we hold ourselves back from our full ability to show up to the full extent of what is possible for us when we do that separation. We shut down entire parts of us that include entire valuable skill sets that come with it, right? Having sales skills helps you in every area of your life. Being a good friend and being an empathetic person and being fun or cool or quirky helps you in every area of your life. Being vulnerable and allowing yourself to be known actually helps you in every area of your life, right? And so this false belief that we can separate those identities and then how we show up actually holds us back. And I just was not being successful trying to do that. And so when I embraced sort of where I was at in my journey in life and what it was teaching me and brought that into work to refine it, of course, that's when I started to see more success on my own terms a bit, and a lot more success and a lot more ease. And trying to be like everybody else never work for me. I was failing and I felt terrible. And it had not just like internal impact on like my belief in myself and my like happiness, but it had a broader external impact than I fully realized really until like the last 10 years of my career. And because I wasn't just impacting me if I didn't show up as I was and really allow myself to be visible, it was having so much broader impact and really not living up to the full responsibility of the visibility and the leadership role that I could play.
Yes.
And so I stopped doing that because it wasn't working to not be myself. So I'd rather have something not work for me because I stand for something, because I'm aligned with my values, because I have taken a calculated risk, because I put myself out there, and knowing that that would free others as well as free me just felt like something that I no longer felt right about not doing. It felt like a responsibility that was coming with the continued success that I was having.
Yep. So let's double click on that.
Okay.
And that is what was really refreshing, right? When I first started at Google, I was out of undergrad. And when I looked around, I think Michelle already mentioned kind of what the environment looked like. I didn't really see anyone that looked like me. I didn't really understand how I could be myself. And that sometimes can be the fear. Maybe it's too much. Maybe I'm too much, right? Maybe I'm too vocal. Maybe I'm too bold. Maybe I'm going against the grain. And I think we grow in comfort with how to do that and how to flex those skills, but sometimes we can be perceived the wrong way. So Britton, I'm curious, how do your peers react to you?
Okay, my peers. This is timely. I just got the feedback from some of my peers. I think this is a tough one because I just talked about who do you define as your peers? Michelle just talked about one, right? So my peers, I think, it's a potato situation on who I think my peers are, and who, that sounds a little arrogant. What I mean is, I have learned discernment, right? The higher we climb, the fewer of us there are, the more intensity of the space not being for us is, more intensity of the ongoing acceptance of like just certain systems just still playing out in a more elite way. And leadership to me is not always about consensus. And leadership to me is about developing discernment, developing a trusted set of like board of directors so that you continue to unlock your full potential, receive feedback, and move forward. But that you can discern and digest the difference between an opinion, a deeply held insecurity, haters, and like real feedback that you need to hear and you need to apply that will benefit you. And it's all a little bit of everything. And like, I'll give you an example. And then another, do you want to get specific to like peers? That's the question you're asking me before.
Yeah.
I will say, like, sometimes, we talked about this before, and I said, well, some of my peers see me and they see how free I am. And they're not. You chained up, you can look at somebody who appears to be free and be like, how'd you do that? I'm trying to be out there with you, how'd you do that? How did you do that? That is amazing. I did not know that was possible. Thank you for telling me. Let's get me there. And then some people are like, hey, she got out, go get her. Go get her, she got out,
Mm-hmm.
And so it is really just about finding your people, respecting and honoring information that is there because from a place of care that still may be hard to hear. And then information that is really just trying to lock you back up or bring you down.
Mm-hmm.
Which the higher you climb, that's a real thing. It's not everybody though, and that is one of the hardest things is like pulling out the gems.
Yes.
Understanding what the root things are, like the consistent things, and then making a decision, right? But you can't be for everybody, and we are not ever for everybody. We can't win if we let other people define us, and like feedback is a form of trying to define someone sometimes. And so I don't know, does that answer your question?
Yeah, for sure. And I think you touched on a lot of different things there.
Yeah.
And one of them is around this idea of flexing. And when do you flex and lean into your power? And when is it time, okay, maybe I went a little too far. Let me pull back a little bit. Or maybe I should make amends. Or maybe I do a road show, right? Went too far, right? Pump the brakes. And so I want you to talk about how you assess that a bit. Because that is kind of the fear, and there's that line of like, okay, I took a little risk here, maybe it didn't work out. How do you learn from that and continue to move?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, one thing I think about is like the leaders that inspire me, that I think are good, also good. Because, by the way, we're not just talking about personal flair, like I'm good at my job, always have been. The problem is that's not the only thing that matters sometimes.
We've already proven that, right?
Right.
It's beyond that.
But then I look up and I see a lot of people who are good at their job and nobody likes them who are leaders and they don't care and nobody cares. So,
100%.
but I don't always think that's good either, right? So I think sometimes, I love to study leadership. I look at the very top and be like, okay, that was a really hard decision. It was the right one. People are pissed, but that's because they don't understand. So let them be mad. That was the right one. And then there are other ones where it's like, I don't know what you were thinking. And so it's discernment of like be choiceful when you will allow yourself to be the unpopular person, when you will push. And to do that, you have to make sure that you develop relationships at all levels and that you keep yourself honest. There's confidence and like humility can come together, and like that's how you can do it, because you have to be confident enough to make a decision and to hold your ground when it's unpopular, and you have to really define for yourself what your ultimate North Star is. And so for me, my purpose and my success and my North Star is not only defined by Google or any organization that I work for, or it will constantly change. And it's a corporation, not a person. And I'll end up at the end of the day having molded my life, my career, and my legacy around a corporate entity that doesn't value me and wasn't built for me beyond, like, any more than anybody else, right? And then, is that what I want at the end of my life? Is that what I want when my daughters are looking up at me, or anybody in my office hours? Absolutely not. I want to stand for something. I want to be proud of what I do. I want to have left and planted like seeds and lifted people up with me in a way that, because no one's ever going to remember my quota attainment, ever. They're going to remember, did I unlock something for you? Did I create an opportunity for you? Did I see you? Did I give you the feedback that helped you understand it better or push through it? Did I, create a situation where you could share your work more broadly? Like, what did, like that, and like, did I get upset about some feedback that I got that was a result of me advocating for my team? And is that the kind of manager I want to be? Yes. Right? And so, does it still feel good to not always be the popular person, or to like be told I'm aggressive? You know what I mean? Because I get that all the time, and I don't shy away from that. Like some of those stereotypes that we get, I will kind of weaponize it back, and I will say, I reserve the right to display a full range of human emotions respectfully.
Come on.
And I was like, well, there's an HBR article that talks about how anger in Black women is perceived as a character trait when others are given the benefit of the doubt, and it's actually attributed to the situation that they're in that's probably causing the anger, which is what you saw there for me. So I'm sure you've read that article, and we can talk about why I was feeling so upset about that situation and displayed that emotion respectfully, because the situation was frustrating. So can we talk about that? And I will continue to work on my emotional regulation, because I made everybody feel uncomfortable. Even though I didn't cuss anybody out. I didn't hit anybody. I didn't raise my voice. But I openly said, this pisses me off. And it was like, and I did that as a Black woman, and I know it's a stereotype. And power.
Utilizing it, shifting it.
I still get in trouble for it.
So speaking of trouble, right? Good trouble. Sometimes it's good trouble, right?
Good trouble.
When you do get into this good trouble,
Yeah.
sometimes we do need guidance, right? There's people
Yes.
who are more senior than us. Michelle, right? She
Yeah.
hired you.
Yeah.
Who do you turn to?
Yeah. I'm super fortunate to have developed, like, I call it the board of directors of like people that I trust, whose work I respect, who are different than me. Because I'm not going to someone who's be like, I know, I'm so mad. Not someone who's like, oh, I'll be like, okay, do this again. Okay, I keep getting this feedback, but you're a great challenger seller. You're a great challenger, but you don't have to challenge everything. And I'm like, I know, I only challenge racism, the patriarchy, and mediocrity. That's it, just those things. Just those things,
Not everything.
Right? Like, a lot of the times I will know in the feedback, like, oh, okay, it was less effective here than I wanted to be. And like, let me go talk to somebody who I trust, who's gonna help me be more effective here. Because I know I can do better, or I need a little bit of feedback, or like I'm in this situation and I really, like, I need to think differently about it, help me get out of my head, help me with my gaps, help me from an outside perspective. Or did I make the wrong call? Help me check myself, And so I'm often going to that community of people that I've built for that.
Got it.
And many of them are us.
That's exactly what
That's
I was
where you
going
want
to
to.
ask.
It's true. Yeah, it's true.
Well, I understand that part is true. But as we've touched on, not everyone looks like us, right? And as we go further up, it gets even more scarce. So how do you, two parts. One, how have you built those relationships that you really value? Because many of us are coming back to the office. Was anyone hired during the pandemic, virtually? Yes. I know Google's culture is very relationship-oriented, relationship-driven, right? So sometimes people have had those relationships, people have been there for 6-7 years, right? Plus, how do you build those relationships for your board of directors? And then how do you expand beyond that and beyond our community?
Yeah, well, within our community, it's very diverse, right? Because we're like a group of women, we have an incredibly diverse community. And so there is such a small number of us who've made it sort of to the level where I am at Google right now. And if you've made it there, you have been through some stuff and you've really, truly, statistically, like in a data-driven way, been held to a different standard. And you truly have dealt with very similar challenges, but you have a variety of people with different styles, backgrounds, and experiences. So I can go to that cohort of amazing women and say, okay, you are really good at keeping cool and collected. And they'll come to me and be like, you are really good at advocating and like getting shit done and negotiating, right? And we kind of play to that strength, but I just put like the through line here, which expands beyond Black women, is excellence, really. Like you see somebody who's good at something and you're not, like some people will be intimidated and shrink from that, and I'm like that person. Like when I'm on a Peloton, I'm like, who can I beat? Who can I chase? And not because I'm trying to beat someone down, because I'm inspired by incredible work that I can't do yet, or that's better than me, and I want to be around somebody who makes me be like, oh, why didn't I think it? Oh my God, that's so amazing. How did you do that? You know, or like, okay, I cannot do that, but like if I need that done, I'm calling you. And I collect people and I sort of see it in people, and I'm very good at reading people. That's a skill that I've developed. It makes me a good salesperson. So I very quickly can assess that in anyone, and I'm also just like unapologetic. So you said your leading skill was relatedness. Mine is later. My leading one is strategy. I'm very strategic. But connectedness is mine, which is like more utilitarian view of like relationships. Like, you know what? And it's so funny because my daughter kind of does it. My husband calls her, says she cruises, but like we'll be at the roller rink and she'll just go to somebody who has the same skates as her, and she's like, "Hey girl, we got the same skates. Let's be besties." You know? and I am kind of like that. I'll just be like, "Hey, I just saw you talk about this thing. I'm thinking about this. Can I pick your brain? Because that was amazing." And people are usually like, "Yes." I shoot my shot all the time. People like to be seen. And I have the ability to sort of see people very quickly and go straight to what I saw and then say, can we talk? And then I know I have something to offer that person as well, right? And so it's not always bad to be transactional. We are busy people who are trying to be successful. And also when you're really real and you're honest, people will trust you. And I honesty is a big thing for me too, and you can see it when and like, radical candor, when you can identify it very quickly, and like then you can sort of trust this person's gonna tell me the truth, right? And really successful people don't have a lot of time, so you gotta get right to it. You gotta ask for what you need, offer what you think you can of value, understand that about yourself, what you know you bring to the table, and just like shoot your shot. It's the same skill as having, sales develop, like sales relationship development.
And I know we're going to talk about that a lot more, but just figuring out how to use those in your relationships, right? How to help you, because we're ultimately doing great work, right? It's not a lot to ask someone to help you get into a new role or to sponsor you in a certain way, to send a recommendation letter when you're actually doing excellent work. That's very easy for them to do. Another thing you talked about is connectedness, right? And so when I started at Google 13 years ago, like I said, it was really hard to find those mentorship relationships where it was natural and authentic, because there wasn't the sheer variety. There weren't numbers, right? There weren't a lot of us. And I know now that you've built somewhat of a reputation for helping more junior sellers. You have a very diverse, successful team, productive team, right?
Yes.
So folks often do come to you, and I want you all to start thinking about some questions because we're going to open it up for Q&A. Folks do come to you, I would say more regularly than some other sales leaders, right?
Yeah.
And so I want to know, for those sales leaders who are in this room, who are running a team, do you have any advice for these folks in terms of how you've thought about how you developed your team, how you think about the mentorship and leadership roles you play?
I mean, probably some of you are already doing this stuff, but I take very seriously being who I say that I am and like living my values and being very consistent. And like I said, I'm a person who spent time watching others lead and having opinions and thoughts and perspectives. I've been at Google 8 years. I've been in 3 verticals, like probably like 4, 5, 6 teams maybe. I've had a lot of managers, seen a lot of VPs, and had a lot of opinions. And it's funny because I've been put in a position a couple of times where like, oh, you think you could do better? Here you go. And I'm like, I do, thank you. And then I'm like, I'm serious when I say that. I think I can do better because I take seriously the opportunity. I've thought through preparing to be in that seat because I expected to be. And then I plan to execute on it and know that I may fall short in some ways, and then I'll learn what I need to and then do it again. So that is sometimes perceived as arrogance, but for me it's like I have confidence that I have the ability to learn how to do this well to the extent and the standard that I think it should be held to. So yes, thank you for the opportunity. I do think I'll do better. I'm looking forward to having a real life case study of how I will do this. Thank you. And so I went into my job thinking like that, and so for example, diverse teams. There's a lot of about how hard it is, and there's no pipeline, and and like that's bullshit. We're thinking about it wrong, and I've been very, very vocal and part of like helping start a program. So it's like the reason we don't have diverse teams is because our managers only have homogenous teams, and so they don't have the appropriate skill set to manage a diverse set of people. And these problems are nuanced when they are across the board, and so our managers aren't good enough. That's why we don't have diverse teams. So I'm going to be a better manager, and I'm going to hire a diverse team. It's going to be more successful because truly, diverse teams are more successful.
Right.
We cannot have a team of people like me. That'd be crazy.
Why?
I need a team of people who fill the gaps that I have and that they all have. So I took seriously diversifying my team in the ways that you can see, in identities, in experience, including neurodiversity, gender, like every way that you can, right? Because it's not just alphabet soup for DE, and I know that's amazing. It is because you literally live this life and walk this earth with a different perspective that you bring to the table to solve problems and different skills. And to bring it back to what Jessica was saying, and this is what I think you said, and you remembered about me. There's another HBR article when we use this that people trust the data, that says women of color have more skill sets and leadership skill sets that are not often identified in the recruiting process or the evaluations for performance process because the people who created those processes do not have them. We have resistance capital because we are used to people not wanting these spaces and we figure out how to get here anyway. We have navigational capital, same thing. How do I move around up when nobody wants me there? But I'm so successful, you don't have a choice, right? We have linguistic capital. We have cultural fluency. We can flow between cultures, even within our own cultures. And so these are incredibly powerful professional skill sets, sales skill sets that literally this group of people has to be here, that we can teach other people who do not have the imperative to have these skills to have. And if we're not given leadership roles or positions on teams, then you don't have that skill in the mix. And not having that skill in the mix does not make it not valuable. It means you don't know what you're missing and you're just less successful. And so my team is successful, one, because it's led by me and I have more skills and different skills. And they've all been led by people like them, some of them, sorry. Many of them I'm the first woman manager they've had. All of them I'm the first Black manager they've had. All of them. So they've had white managers or other identities, but they've never had someone like me. So I offer them someone new and I lead them differently. I do. So when I'm leading a situation, they get my perspective, right? I don't have to turn to the one person on my team and say, how do you feel about the events that just happened? They get my perspective. When we had layoffs, they got me saying, have some perspective, pull your big kid pants on, let's hit these numbers. And some of them didn't like that. It's like, ultimately, that was the right move. So they get led by my perspective. They see me work, they see how clients treat me. And they don't just read in an article or have a one-off session about how we might be theoretically treated different. They see me be treated differently. And they learn through lived experience, and then they take that knowledge, all of them, not just the Black members of my team, and they are different because of it. And they work better together, they work differently together, and they work differently with other people. And when they become leaders in other spaces, they take that knowledge with them, and they are better leaders. And they see my capital, they see the things I bring to the table that they don't, they learn them from me, and they look for them in the future. And so my team is more successful because it is not homogenous on any level. And I led with culture, and I focus on culture, because inclusion is not just a soft, fluffy thing. We're gonna figure out a way to leverage all these skills to be a very powerful team across the board. And so that is how I think about it, that is what I've done. And that is why I honor the people who come into my office hours, to your point about some of the junior members, because I will always have gaps, we will all always have gaps. You cannot be everything to everybody. And you have to always be staying on top of that. So when I get somebody from Gen Z in my office hours, I don't know if anybody in here is Gen Z, but like, I'm just like, I'm shook. I'm like, this is different. But I'm like, you know what? I'm not trying to like change who this, I'm trying to learn, right? So I'm not trying to reject some of these principles of the space and the boundaries, and because some of that is like, you know what, that's not a bad idea. But like, I get to do that. You've been here 5 minutes. You cannot tell me when I can't talk to you.
And that's why spaces like this are super important, right? Because we get to see one another, get to see different styles, and it creates more space for all our authenticity as well.
Yeah.
So with that, I want to ask you one more thing, but I want to get to the audience. So, do we have any questions in the room? Okay.
We have time for one question.
Sorry.
Maybe we can push it to.
But I think a few folks will still be
Okay.
around after 6 hours.
So, hi, Pearl Menza. So one of the things, or a couple of the things that Jessica mentioned when she spoke was like about going where you're celebrated and where like you're invested in.
Yeah.
How do you know the difference between a space where like you need to fight, stand up for yourself versus like when it's time to leave and pivot? Because throughout my career, that's what I've had to do to move up.
Yeah.
I've had to go to different companies and I've moved and done that. So how do you know, like what about Google made you know this is a place where I can fight and it'll make a difference? Yeah.
And maybe give an example.
That's a really complicated question, because I think like the equation is really unique to the individual, and like what are all the inputs in your life, and where are you in your life, and what do you need in your life? Google has been an incredible opportunity for me, and I had this goal in my mind of what I needed to get out of this place that benefits me and me alone, right? And if I left before I achieved that, Google, it doesn't matter to Google, there's like 100 people behind me that can do the same thing, you know, I mean, pretty stuff. Right. But what it means for me in my life, like the difference it makes for me and the impacts I'm able to have to like provide for my family, create new opportunities, get to sit in a room like this, those are the inputs I have to weigh when I'm really feeling like I'm not valued or stifled, which happens all the time. And you know, I'm at a place now where I will go to bat for myself. I will say no to things, and I'm willing to take a calculated risk that it could limit my career at Google, because it's not going to limit my career overall. So I am in a place now where I'm much better at discerning what is an opportunity, not just because somebody told me it's an opportunity, but what is really an opportunity. What skills do I want to lean into? It's not just like, what do I need to learn? It's like, what makes me feel good and what makes me really valuable when I get to bring it in its full extent to the table, right? That needs to be a big part of the equation for me. And I also still need to be learned and interested and challenged, but I also need to be supported. I need to figure some things out. So like being tighter about what I need and what the obstacle is. Is it a person in charge who might not be there all the time, or I might not have to deal with that much? Is it a system? Is it like a teammate or two? What are the things and how overcomable are they, and how much energy is that going to take from me, and what is it going to cost me? So like I don't know that there is, the best answer I can give you is like that define that North Star, like keep refining what and go back to it. Because you'll get caught up in the achievement treadmill, you'll get caught up in the promotion cycle, you'll get caught up in how other people define you, and you will never win that game. Never win that game. Oh, just when I hit this, or just when I get this next promo, you'll never win. You have to do it for yourself, define it for yourself, and understand what that equation is for you, and then it becomes very clear.
We'll take one more question.
I know, thank you. I know you were talking about the importance of mentorship and having people like you. And in an environment where so much of work is still remote, I would love to just get an idea of what it's like, because you both have worked at a Google before that happened and currently, but we know that relationships are definitely formed better when you're in person.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you sort of counsel young people who are now being raised and growing up in a business environment that's largely remote?
Yeah, I mean, you have to be proactive. Like I have office hours on my calendar. I know, like that's Google's culture. It really, you can ask me a story that maybe Michelle remembers, maybe she doesn't. I do not understand Google's culture. People just put meetings on your calendar. And like when I first started Google, I was like, decline.
It's not really optional.
I did not enjoy our last conversation, so decline. And like I was like, what? I played myself. It was bad. But I was just like, this is, I'm expected to do this. Okay, got it. Oops, okay. But understand the culture of the company that you're in, right? And if it's a company where like this is expected or there are programs, start there. And then you build. Every time you talk to somebody, do it in an authentic way, please, because I can tell when someone's coming in and they're just like, hi, let me tell you all about these things, and now can you introduce me to 3 people? Like, be authentic, be yourself, genuinely seeking connection, right? And then ask like, okay, I am really just trying to figure this culture out. I'm really trying to feel like I'm part of this company. Is there anybody that you can think of that I should go talk to next, or that you wouldn't mind introducing me to? And like, who says no to that?
I agree.
Yeah.
I would only add that you have to create the time, right?
Yeah.
That I feel like for me is the biggest boundary. And one thing I think Britton does really well, she's very deliberate about her time and connections. She also has the benefit of having been there for longer, right, than many of our peers in a senior position. But I think especially when you're trying to get to know people at a company, when you're the one who is coming from being remote and maybe you don't know others who know each other better, be strategic and be deliberate, create the time. So on Fridays, I have a career time blocked off. I should probably respect that time a bit more, right? Because it takes time to think about, and as well as to be strategic and like who you want to talk to, so that you can come across authentically and that it doesn't sound so transactional, right? Because oftentimes we may set up time for 15 minutes with someone, but what is the real sticking point? Like, what are we even talking about here? Why should I introduce you to 3 other people? But if you have been really thoughtful in how you're approaching me and what our connectivity is, then I'm more likely to connect you to other people. Exactly how we want to be approached, that's how everyone else wants to be approached. So be thoughtful, be strategic, and make the time
And don't waste
to do
the
it.
time.
And don't waste the time. Make the time, don't waste the time.
Don't waste the time.
All right, you all. Thank you all for being such a